Got it, got it. Who's the first big name race driver you've met, and what was the interaction like?
Well, the first big name would probably be Rusty Wallace. That would probably be the first big name driver I met. His son Steven raced with us in the UARE Stars tour when I was younger, and so every once in a while Rusty would come to the track and watch Steven, and so I got to meet him when I was younger. And as you mentioned earlier, I think you said you like Jamie McMurray, and
Mm-hmm.
so we got to meet Jamie McMurray. They used to have, and I think they still do actually. They call it like the Food City Family Race Nights, where they kind of have a little promotional event to gear up for like the Bristol races and things like that.
Yep.
And we got invited with our car to go to that when I was younger. And Jamie McMurray was there, Kyle Petty. There was a few drivers that were there at that time. I remember meeting Casey Kane at one point when I was little. But I do remember meeting Jamie. He was very nice to me as a young boy. And Casey Kane, he was super nice to me too when I was little. So as far as maybe not some of the big ticket, drivers out there, I was a big Casey Kane fan. I've got some Casey Kane merch up here on my shelf that I collected over the years as well. I was a big Casey Kane fan. Now that I think about it too, he was a big hero of mine when I was little. I loved watching that 9 car, rip the top. He come from the dirt world. And so they like ripping the fence and running up top. So I loved watching that when I was a kid. I remember watching him win at Charlotte and some big races like that. And I thought that was super cool back then.
Yeah, it's awesome about Casey Kane when you think about it. He's won all but one of his truck starts.
Really? I didn't know that.
I looked that up the other day, and his last was that photo finish with Eric Jones, I believe, when he drove for Junior, I believe.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. He was a wheelman, and obviously you probably saw him have that Xfinity start this year. He had a good showing in that too until I think they had an issue. He ended up kind of finishing towards the back of the pack. I don't think they ran the full race, if I remember correctly. I think they kind of got crashed out or something broke. I can't remember, but I was excited to see him back in the Xfinity car this year. That was really cool too.
Yeah, for sure. You know what my first interaction with the driver was?
Who's that?
Juan Pablo Montoya, right before he left the Ganassi team. It was in
Really?
Yeah, it was in 2013 and at Phoenix in November. And during that season, he had some races that he had in the bag, but had lost for whatever reason. He almost won Richmond and would have won if a caution hadn't come out with like 100 feet left before the finish line, and that allowed Kevin Harvick to win. And then later that year, he almost won Dover. He pulled a fast one on Jimmy Johnson that led to Jimmy, being penalized, and then Juan took a lengthy lead. But then he wore out his car at the end, and it allowed Tony Stewart to pass him, I think, with like a lap to go. Do you remember that?
I do remember a little bit of that. So how was your experience with Juan Pablo?
Here's what happened exactly. He was on one of those stages, talking with the fans and all that, and then after he gave his speech and did a Q&A with them, obviously there were people towards the front of the fence ready to get his autograph for when he would come down and do a brief signing. And by that point, it hadn't been announced yet, but it was obvious he wasn't going to be retained by Ganassi because he was going to drive for Penske the next year, even though it hadn't been announced yet. And so anyway, I snuck through a crowd into the front, kind of a little bit in a cutting the line kind of way, and I was able to secure an autograph and a handshake from Juan when he was coming through the crowd. So I did it in a way, though, as I mentioned, where I cut through the line a little bit, got my book, and then got my Sharpie and went to the front. And I was just in time for Juan to pass me, and he grabbed my book and autographed it. And then I shook hands with him, and we exchanged a smile, and I thanked him, and he said in his South American accent, "You're welcome, have a fun race." And then I turn around, and there were some people that were angry with me for cutting through the line. And
speaking of kind of sneaking through, so one of my fonder memories at the track with my grandfather. So I can say this now because the statute of limitations are probably expired, but I guess back in, I think it was 2008, if I remember correctly, I would have been, 14 years old, okay, in 2008. That tells you how old I am now, but 2008, we were running, our late model program was running at Bristol Motor Speedway, and so my grandfather had teamed up with another team, and I believe the way it worked, it was our engine in another team's chassis, and we were going to kind of combine both of our strengths. We had a really good engine program. They had a really good chassis program and good support around their team, and so we kind of put 2 and 2 together there, and was trying to have a really strong showing at Bristol. And in order to get in the pits at Bristol Motor Speedway at that time, you had to be 16 years old. And I was like, Papa, I don't know what we're going to do. I can't go, I got to be 16 years old. And he said, oh, you look 16 to me. And so we went up to the gate, and he said, just go along with me here. And I was like, okay. So he told the lady I was 16, and she asked for my birthday, and I had to kind of cut a couple years off of it, and make my numbers match there. So I told her the correct year to be 16 at the time. And anyway, we snuck in the pits and had a really strong showing that race weekend. I think we qualified on the pole or on the front row. It might have been the outside pole where we qualified. And I don't remember what lap we took the lead in the race, but ultimately we ended up winning that race. And I got my pictures in victory lane with my grandfather and the whole team and the car. And Matt Benedetto actually was the driver of that car. And so he won that race for us back then, and I think he attributes one of his better victories in his career running that race at Bristol and winning that. So, as you know, he still runs in the Xfinity Series today. He drove for my grandfather and one of his friends in that Bristol race, and I've still got pictures and everything of that, so that's really cool for me.